Alright, good morning guys. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about potential for a little bit of a stretch of severe weather across the southern United States. It all starts today across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, where we could see a couple stronger to severe storms along the coast, mainly providing a threat for a brief tornado and also threat for damaging wind gusts. See here, a large, long discussion was also added. We could see a couple stronger tornado, or not stronger tornadoes, stronger storms across Oklahoma today as well. But instability lacking is really what's causing the SPC to not even issue a general thunderstorm risk for these areas. We'll kind of talk about that in a second. Tomorrow, another day of severe weather is also expected. Low-end tornado and wind threat. SPC also mentioned potential for severe weather outlook for tomorrow to be upgraded as well. Kind of the southern Georgia area is the area they're monitoring for a convective upgrade. So here we go. Here's for today. And also before we actually jump into the models, let me go to the Weather Prediction Center site because we're going to be looking at a pretty big snowstorm with the second system. But the first system, I can see here, and sorry for jumbling around again, but I forgot to talk about the day 4 outlook. We have a 15% risk across portions of Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia. I think this is going to get shifted big time west. I think it's probably going to look something like this tomorrow with the day 3 outlook. We'll probably have a big day 3 slight along a lot of the coast here. Something like this is probably what's going to be happening. Maybe somewhere will be a little bit edged a little bit further to the north, but we're starting to see confidence in more severe weather out in Texas with that event. Now, it looks like heavy snow is probably going to happen today across Colorado and Kansas, and in the mountains of Washington and Idaho as well. As we get toward day 2, we're expecting a big snowstorm across portions of Maine, New Hampshire, kind of down to the Vermont, New York area, and some snow in the mountains of Idaho, Montana, and Colorado as well. Day 3, we're expecting the startup of a pretty big winter storm across Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, with the previous winter storm / nor'easter type thing moving out. General look at the fronts map here, and we can see Tuesday we're expecting severe storms in those areas in red and probably a little bit further to the east as well. Heavy snow. Wednesday morning we're expecting heavy snow across portions of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and into Michigan. I think this is going to be a little bit further to the south though when the Weather Prediction Center does their new update for this. Next day we're expecting heavy snow up into the New York area as well. Friday, not really too much happening. Snow across portions of the Midwest due to lake effect. Let's kind of take a look at the HRRR for today. We're expecting these kind of transient supercell features to move on shore. Maybe we get a brief tornado in like Florida or something, but I really don't see too much happening today. Tomorrow morning, we can see that line starts to kind of build. Flash flooding is going to be a major hazard tomorrow as well. Looking over, we have only a marginal risk, though I do expect a slight risk to be issued probably somewhere in here, as heavy rain looks to be a pretty big impact with the system for tomorrow. As we can see here, we kind of have a line of training thunderstorms. HRRR does show a broken line of supercells in the evening across Georgia. Ahead of it, we can see here there's not very much thermodynamics to work with. You do have a pretty solid hodograph there for some damaging winds and maybe a brief tornado, although the low-level jet enlargement is not very good there. You can see here your thermodynamic profile between the red and light lines, though, is very weak, so we're not expecting a big-time storm system there. Looking at today as a whole, we can see pretty heavy snow is expected, and then some lighter stuff into Illinois, places like that. A couple inches is possible with that, and then you can see here it kind of strengthens as we get toward Maine. Now, looking into the GFS model here, let's look at 500 millbar heights first, so we can kind of get a look at the system. So we can see this first system over here. moving into kind of the southeast United States there. You can see the second system is starting to eject across portions of Texas. You're going to have a pretty solid severe weather threat Tuesday afternoon with supercells definitely possible ahead of this ejecting trough, and it looks to consolidate a little bit earlier, which would mean a higher severe threat for the afternoon hours across Texas. And it looks like there's this little jet impulse as well. Let me go back to here. You can see there's just jet impulse that forms. It's going to kind of help with moisture content to kind of funnel it up. We also can see the defluence, which is kind of the spreading with the winds aloft, and you can see it's pretty solid there. And we can really see that as we go further up in the atmosphere. You can see that embedded shortwave kind of lifting up, and we're going to see severe potential in the Carolinas as well. Let's first stop this at 18Z on Tuesday with the GFS, and I think the new one's loaded in as well. It's not very far into its run yet. We're expecting a very strong low-level jet across Texas, upwards of 60 to 80 knots, which is quite strong. We're also expecting big-time snowfall on the backside of this. As we get closer to the ground, though, very strong winds are also likely. We're expecting a gradient winds ahead of the system to be 50 plus mile per hour, kind of in this general area wherever the warm front advanced onto. We can see the strong moisture transport is really going to only matter kind of how far that low pressure goes, and the models are slamming this low pressure further and further south, which will decrease the severe weather threat a little bit and cause that warm sector to be a little bit smaller. Now we could see this trend north last second as well, which would increase the snow potential for areas a little bit further to the north, but would also gather potential for more of a significant severe weather outbreak as well. Now, kind of moving into the advanced specifics here, we have dew points into the mid-60s for a lot of Texas here, and if we take a box sounding kind of where we have that solid moisture, you can see the environment is potent. You have a very large hodograph with strong low-level winds and strong upper-level winds generated with this feature here. We can see decent instability between those red and white lines there. The low levels are a little bit saturated because of how close you are to the ocean, which is expected, so your low level lapse rates are not very good. So we could see more of a messier kind of mode, but we're generally expecting severe weather, and we also see Houston, Texas could be in the crosshairs of this, although their threat might be a little bit lessened. Now the NAMP shows very similar kind of thing to the GFS, except the GFS is slightly faster. But the NAM also has this pretty solid severe weather threat across portions of Texas Tuesday afternoon. We can see it has a very enlarged hodograph and solid instability values. Now, around 3Z, this low pressure system does start to pivot and strengthen as it moves to the northeast, bringing out a little bit of a larger warm sector across Louisiana, Mississippi, into Alabama. If we take a look at kind of a sounding just north of New Orleans, there's not that much instability, but that hodograph is potent. So any storms that can really get themselves going could be a pretty big hazard for that area. As we get into the Carolinas as well, we're going to have to watch this. If the system is slower like the newer runs do suggest, I do think the Carolina Georgia threat for the next day could be a lot higher. We can see here we have solid dew points into the low to mid 60s with a potent 500 millibar jet, which vectors like this would support a discrete storm mode ahead of the front. Looking kind of at your reflectivity, we can see GFS goes for more of a line of storms. As we get into South Carolina here's a forecast sounding just near Columbia. We can see the GFS does not want to give out much instability at all. Looking at your surface-based Cape and hodograph map, we can see there's not really too much instability outside of Florida. We do have some instability just north of Charleston, North Carolina. Decent sounding there, but nothing too spectacular. GFS could be underdoing instability, but the system could also not really have that much to work with as well. Even though it doesn't have much instability to work with, I'm still expecting some severe weather potential across the Carolinas as well. Now, looking kind of into the snowfall here's the GFS, and this is for 24 hours. We can see here pretty solid totals are expected from Oklahoma into portions of the Northeast. Let me just go total snowfall on this and just push it all the way out here. So we're expecting a pretty major storm here. This is the next track here for this. We can see it's been shifting south throughout the last couple of days. This is 10-to-1 ratios, so depending upon where you are, Kachura might be a little bit better, but you can see here a large swath of 6+ inches of snow is expected from, or is forecast off the GFS ensembles from Texas through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Northern Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, the mountains of West Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia, but the Appalachians, New York, Vermont, Maine, portions of Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire. So a large area into Canada, a large area of significant snowfall is expected. Looking over to the Weather Prediction Center page, and we can see here, so for probability of 4 inches of snow is currently medium today across Kansas, very high across the mountains of Washington. Tomorrow we have a couple of local spots where it's high as well. And as we get into the medium range, we can see the Weather Prediction Center also has medium possibility of exceeding 4 inches of snow. Also, are melted precip for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and portions of Missouri and Illinois as well. They're a little bit uncertain on storm track though. Day 5, we can see this chance definitely gets further into Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, throughout Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine as well. And then as we get into day 6, the system moves out and we start to really kind of just go into a pattern with more mountain snow. That will do it for the short weather update, and I will see you in the next one.